Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 15th of January, 2024. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I'm back after another week-long break, and I'm sure most of you have seen this already, but unfortunately I needed to take a break because my dog Buddy passed away last Sunday, the 7th of January. Now, we had known that was coming for a few weeks, I think, at least. He had slowed down a lot, obviously, as older dogs, and I guess older people do, right? As you kind of age, and he was having weakness in his legs, and his behavior kind of started changing, and then obviously we took him to a vet. We actually took him on 26th of December to the vet, and basically she said that it was highly likely that he had cancer because he had these swollen lymph nodes all over him, and then not even 2 weeks later, he was gone. He just deteriorated very quickly from there. Obviously, we opted not to do treatment because he was very old. He was 16 and a half. I mean, more than 16 and a half. His birthday's in May, so almost 17 years old, and definitely not one of those Chihuahua dogs that live to like 20 years old. I think that's one of the dogs that lived the longest. He definitely lived longer than expected. So yeah, we got him. I should say I got him as part of a family dog back in 2007. It's a very long time ago. I think I was 14 years old at the time. I'm 31 now, 32 this year, but got him back then, and he had been in my life since then, basically. You know, it's kind of funny because he had a bunch of different owners over the years, but I was always there. So basically, we got it as a family dog, and then I think when I was like 20 or 21, my parents split up. My sister and mum moved out. Me and my dad stayed in the kind of like family home, and Buddy stayed with us there, and then when COVID hit, like a few years later, my dad moved out with his new partner, and then it was basically me and my fiance Diana, who looked after him for really the last 4 years, and he came with us when we moved into our new house as well. But I would say that it was really the last 4 years that kind of like it had the biggest impact on myself and Diana with Buddy. We spent a lot of time with him. Obviously, I work from home, and obviously because of COVID, there was lockdowns and things like that. So we spent a lot of time with him during that time. We gave him all the love that we could, especially my fiance. She was a champion with him. Honestly, he loved her so much, basically. So yeah, he had the last 4 years of his life was probably the best, honestly, because he just got so much attention. But yeah, then unfortunately he passed away last Sunday, and honestly for me, it was. I mean, we obviously, as I said, like we knew it was coming, but for me, it hit me really, really hard. It hit me harder than I thought it would hit me. I think that besides my fiance, I had grown so attached to Buddy that it was probably like the second most attached to not a person, but like living thing in my life, to be honest. Honestly, because I spent so much time with him, because he's just so innocent. He's a dog, right? I mean, someone actually DM'd me and said that, think about it like this, you know, for us as humans, we have so much going on in our lives, so many different things happening, you know, so many different things that we're focused on. But for a dog, and really for other pets as well, we are their whole life, really. I mean, they've got nothing else really going on. We are their whole life. We feed them, right? We play with them. We are their source of happiness, right? So we basically are their entire world for their entire life, essentially. So I thought that was a really beautiful way to look at it. But yeah, I think that's why it hit me the hardest. And I do want to give a really, really big shout out to everyone, and a thank you to everyone who sent me your condolences and love. It really meant a lot to know that I had a lot of people that were obviously kind of sharing their own experiences with pets that they have or have had in the past that have passed away as well, and knew how I feel, but also just people passing on their love. It really did help me over the last week or so. I'm still not in the best place, honestly. Like, I'm still pretty shaken up and pretty torn by it. I know that, you know, obviously over time, you know, it kind of heals it and makes it easier to deal with, but it just sucks, especially because I'm still in the same house as where Buddy was, and Buddy would always sit on the couch, or he'd always come into my study when I was sitting here and kind of want my attention, and that's kind of all gone, right? So it feels like a part of me is just missing at this point, and I'm just kind of working through the motions and dealing with that, especially. Because it's just very hard. And honestly, as I said, like, he lived a very long life, one of the luckier dogs out there, but that doesn't make it any easier. I mean, as humans, we have a life expectancy of what? If you're in a first world country, it's like 80 to 85. Most dogs don't even live to be anywhere near 17. Like, I was looking it up, like 10 to 15 years is what most dogs get. And that, you know, that is a really, really short time compared to our lives, especially if you get a dog as like a kid or as a teenager like I did. It just puts into perspective how long our lives are compared to a dog's life. And there are other animals that live even less time than that people keep as pets and things like that. But anyway, I don't want to ramble too much on about this. I just figured that obviously you guys know that the last week I was away because of this, and it really just it hit me harder than I expected it would hit me. So maybe there'll be days going forward that I'll just have to take off because I'll just be having a bad day about it or something like that. And I'm sure any of you have had pets before, or have pets, know exactly how it feels. You know, it's kind of funny because I was talking to different people about this, and I kind of get the feeling for people who've never had pets before, they don't understand that a pet, especially something like a dog or even a cat. I mean, I haven't had any other pets except Buddy, so I don't know what it feels like to have another pet, but especially something like a dog that we've literally bred over, you know, tens of thousands of years, even longer than that, to be our best friend, like to be humans' best friend. We're basically soulbound to them, essentially, and they rely on us for everything. When you form a bond that strongly with a living thing, it doesn't matter if it's an animal or a human, I think that it hits the same. You know, I felt the same way about Buddy as I did about my grandparents passing. I know it's to people who haven't had pets before, maybe they think that's weird, maybe they think that's you know, that's crazy, but I think if you've had a pet, or if you have a pet and you're really close to them and you spend a lot of time with them, you definitely understand the bond that can form with them and how their loss can be like losing a human. I mean, for me and my fiance, it was really like losing a child. We don't have any children yet. We do plan to sometime in the future, but we don't have any yet. And I can only describe it as feeling like, you know, a parent losing their child. I mean, I don't know what that feels like, and I hope that I obviously never know what that feels like. But that's the kind of loss that I felt, and it was a really deep sadness, especially for the first couple of days. I mean, and even at this point, I'm still in disbelief about it. I still expect to, you know, go out on my study, go to the couch and see him just lying there, sitting there like he is in this picture, because he really did leave an impression and a presence on everyone. And it really just kind of feels like I've lost a part of myself. But anyway, as I said, didn't want to go on too long about that, but I felt like that was something that I wanted to get out there for you guys, just to explain kind of Buddy's life, explain what he meant to me, and explained why I need to take that time off there. And I do apologize for taking that time off, but I have a lot to get through today, so enough on that for now. I'm going to get into everything that I've missed over the past week or so. So a lot of exciting things happened. Obviously, we're going to kick it off with talk about the ETF. Now, of course, the Bitcoin ETFs, the spot ETFs were approved. You guys know that I had no doubt about this at all, and there's so much to say about this. So I want to start at the top by basically saying, yes, they got approved, and I do want to get this out of the way before I jump into this. There is someone in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, quite active in there. You know, he's really great. His name's Greystroke. He was very doubtful that these ETFs would get approved by Jan 10th. He figured that they would get denied. So the ARC one would get denied on Jan 10th, and then they'd all get approved in March. And I was obviously on the other end of that saying, and so were other people in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, we were all saying that, hey, no, it's going to get approved by Jan 10th. Otherwise, they're going to open themselves up to many lawsuits, basically. And they would have. Like, for sure, the next day, they would have been hit with all these lawsuits. I'm sure that these filers probably had the lawsuits ready to go if they were denied here. So I just want to say, Greystroke, funny that's the kind of like way it worked out. I'm not going to spend the whole episode dunking on you like I was joking about in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, but hey, you know, good play there. And you know what's funny? I actually see that you're more confident that the ETH ETFs are going to get approved now than you were about the BTC ETFs, but we'll have to see how that plays out, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, now that that's out of the way, ETFs approved. Obviously, we saw the price action over the last week and exactly what happened once they were approved. And I did mention this, I think, a few weeks ago, where I said the market was in like a holding pattern where it was like it didn't know if the ETF was going to be bullish or bearish for BTC. And I did say, I think I said this, and if I didn't say this, it's what I was thinking at the time, that it would stay in a range. It would stay in a range because you basically have the market at a stalemate where it doesn't know where it wants to go. And this was specific to BTC. And then I also said that immediately after the BTC ETFs were approved, you would see a rotation into ETH. Now, what's funny is that this actually happened before they were approved because, as we all know by now, the SEC's Twitter account was compromised. Now, we don't know if it was hacked or not. We don't know how the compromise kind of happened, and I don't know if the SEC will actually do a postmortem on this, but it was compromised a day before, so Jan 9th, and obviously it tweeted out that the ETFs were approved. Now, once it tweeted this out, the BTC price spiked up momentarily, but then it dumped. But the thing is that it dumped because people rotated immediately into ETH, and ETH BTC skyrocketed. Now, this is what we call in the market, this is what's called the market showing its hand, because before this, everyone was doubting whether this rotation would happen, right? Like, oh, is it this easy? You know, is the market going to give us a trade this easy? And I've been saying for a long time that the narrative would immediately shift and the price action would immediately shift because now, obviously, the ETFs being approved is a reality. And now we have to move on to the next narrative, which is the ETH ETFs, right? So that happened on Jan 9th. Now, because the market showed its hand, everyone was like, okay, well, yeah, the rotation trade is on. And that gave it more strength. And then, obviously, ETH BTC, if you've looked at the chart, erased 3 months of bleeding in like 3 days. So it went from 0.0 4.7, I think it bottomed at. I wasn't even looking at this, obviously, because this all happened during, during the time that Buddy passed away. But 0.048, it's at 0.06 now. It skyrocketed. It went up like 20+% off of that, and then it continued going up, obviously, on Jan 10th when the ETFs were actually approved. Now, Bitcoin has actually held a sideways pattern for a while now. It did go up a little bit. It went up to like almost 50K, but then came back down. It's at around 43K right now. But if you were to look at the chart, it's still in that kind of sideways pattern that it's been in for quite a while. And that's exactly because the bulk of the ETF move for BTC happened between 25K and 45K. That was the move. That was the market pricing in the ETFs getting approved on Jan 10th. And I did mention this multiple times, that was the move, right? And now because of that, and because of the ETH BTC bleeding during that entire move, ETH was lagging, right? I mean, there were other assets popping off as well, but ETH as an asset was lagging because anyone who was going to buy ETH would just buy BTC instead because there was this obvious trade happening. But now the obvious trade is the ETH ETF narrative because everyone's like, okay, well, if BTC went from 25K to 45K, on the ETF narrative, what can ETH do? Can ETH go to like 3K? Can it go to 3.5K? Can it go to 4K? So this is the speculation that we're now seeing. And because of that, it's going to run until probably May, I think. May is the first final deadlines, or first batch of final deadlines for the ETFs. And because of the fact that the SEC approved the BTC spot ETFs on Jan 10th, even though there was only one or two, I believe it might have just been one application that had a deadline here out of the 11, people are now speculating that, okay, well, this means that the ETH ETF is going to be approved in May. And the timing of this couldn't be better, guys. And for multiple reasons. I mean, if you're talking about like bullish kind of catalysts here and bullish reasons here, the timing couldn't be better. And I'll tell you why. One, the Bitcoin halvening is in April. So that's another narrative that's happening, right? The Bitcoin halvening is always a narrative. It's always something that gets people excited. Two, we could be pushing very close to all-time highs by Q2, which is where May falls into, right? And three, May is not that long from here, but it is kind of like 5 months. So it does give ETH time to move. And if ETH starts moving, it means that the rest of the market's going to keep moving because ETH is usually viewed as kind of like more of a risk-on bet than BTC is. And then you'll see kind of more and more money going to the other things that are more risk-on and obviously rotate through. But all of that culminates in ETH and BTC reaching fresh new all-time highs, which is what kicks off the, I guess, I wouldn't say final stages of the bull market, but that's like probably the midpoint, to be honest, is when the all-time highs get reached. And then you have like the whole mid to end of the bull market being the crazy stuff that happens. Obviously, we get a lot of new money coming in. Everyone's like, oh my God, they're back at all-time highs. You know, you have every narrative running crazy and you have all the scams popping off and, you know, all the stuff that we see in a bull market. So that's kind of like the roadmap that we have right now. I'm still fairly confident we could see all-time highs by Q2 for BTC and ETH. And maybe it gets pushed out to Q3, but Q2 seems pretty good there. And then you also have like ETH native narratives, right? You have EIP 4844 and Dencun going live mid to late March, it looks like at this stage. And you also have restaking as a narrative picking up like a lot of steam and obviously EigenLayer going live in between that. You have a lot of new layer 2s coming online as well. Layer 2 growth going crazy. There's just a lot of reasons to be bullish on ETH at this point in time. And now that overhang is gone of people trading the BTC spot ETF, which meant that ETH was bleeding, now ETH, I think, is poised to outperform for a while from here. And it's already outperformed amazingly. I mean, 20% move is crazy, guys, on ETH BTC. And the fact that it went, 3 months of bleed was erased in 3 days, I think sends a strong signal to the market that no one was bearish on ETH. They were just going into BTC as the trade for the ETF. And now they're doing the same thing for ETH. So everyone's going to front run that. They're going to be like, okay, well, if we're playing out this narrative trade again, then we better buy ETH now. And that's what basically pushes ETH up even further, right? And that obviously should bring in new money as things approach new all-time highs, because it might be, there is an argument to be made that it's still all the same hot ball of money, but that's okay. I don't think that's a bad thing because that's what gets things started. And as we saw, like with the early stage bull market, and then I mentioned the other day that I thought we were past the early stage bull market, and past the very early stage. We're in the early stage bull market now, but we're past the kind of transition period from crab to bull market, and then we're going to move into the midpoint when all-time highs happen. And then we'll obviously move from mid to mid to late, and I'll mention it when I feel like that's happening. But I'm already seeing people call for like the top here, which is just crazy to me as well. Someone said that, oh, this is like the Coinbase IPO, the ETFs launching is like the Coinbase IPO, and I was like, that's insane. The market conditions are totally different right now compared to Coinbase's IPO, which, just a reminder, happened in May 2021, I believe, or April 2021, which is basically like the Pico top. Oh, not the Pico top, but like the first top that we had. And I've mentioned before how I believe the second top in November 2021 was a Fugazi top. It was driven by scam leverage and FTX and SBF doing all their scam leverage stuff, right? All that stuff there. So I still consider like May 2021 to be the actual top of that market cycle. And that happened around the same time as the Coinbase IPO. The Bitcoin ETFs are launching when BTC isn't any, I mean, it's close to all-time high. I think BTC is down about 40% from all-time high right now. But we're not even at the all-time high yet. So you can't make that same argument. I just felt like that was insane there. But yeah, I mean, that's I guess like the bulk of what I wanted to say about the ETFs is that I think that I'm patting myself on the back for being right about two things. The ETFs being approved, which honestly I didn't think was anything to doubt. But there were a lot of people doubting it even till the final hour. But they're getting approved by Jan 10th. And also the second thing, which I think a lot more people were doubting, was that there would be a rotation into ETH. I saw people saying that the entire market cycle would skip over ETH because like, why would you buy ETH when you can buy BTC and other assets? It was the classic barbell theory that was present in 2020, where everyone was saying, why would you buy ETH when you can just buy BTC and DeFi tokens? And then, of course, ETH just slaughtered everything during the bulk of the bull market. And DeFi tokens got slaughtered against ETH. Even the ones that were the most bullish back then are just like in the gutter, still down 90+%. And then obviously ETH outperformed BTC as well. And that's all the same kind of narratives perpetuating this time around too. So I think that I'm taking credit for the second thing the most. The fact that I called months in advance, mind you, the fact that it would immediately rotate. It didn't even wait. It didn't even wait for the official announcement. It immediately happened as soon as the fake announcement went out, right? So the fact that I saw that months in advance, I'm going to pat myself on the back for that. But to me, it was just obvious. It was so obvious that would happen, especially given like sentiment as well, and given people saying that ETH is going to lag forever, everything's just going to outperform ETH. I was like, yeah, okay, I've seen this before. I've seen this too many times before. I think that's crap, but. Anyway, enough on the ETF stuff. I think, I'm going to move on to the next bit of news, which was an update on the SEC versus Coinbase. So as you guys know, the SEC still has open cases against Coinbase, Binance, and Kraken for basically the same thing, which is charging them with trading unregistered securities. Now, of course, there were a bunch of crypto assets named in these cases. I'm not going to rattle them all off, but some of the more popular ones were named in there. But there is an update here from Meta Lawman that says that there is a hearing on Coinbase's motion for judgment on the pleadings, which is going to be held on Wednesday, Jan 17th, which is this week. And he says that there are 4 possible outcomes with potential permeations to each. So the 4 possible outcomes, so option 1 is the judge denies Coinbase's motion. Option 2 is a judge grants Coinbase's motion with prejudice. Option 3 is a judge grants motion without prejudice. And option 4, the judge grants a motion with respect to the claims relating to the 13 crypto tokens, but denies with respect to the staking service. So there are 4 key options there, and Meta Lawman describes what each of these entail. So I'll link this thread in the YouTube description below for you to do so. But the judge, just a reminder here that is proceeding over Coinbase's case, is Judge Fowler here, who actually has ruled in favor of crypto-related cases before. So they've got a good judge, that's for sure, specifically in Coinbase's case here. But we'll have to wait till Jan 17th to see which way they rule. But if the judge actually grants Coinbase's motion without prejudice, and basically, with prejudice, that means the entire case is dismissed and it's all over at the district court, but the SEC can then move on to appeal at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. So yeah, that's the best possible outcome, that the judge basically dismisses the entire case, but we don't know what the chances of that are. It could go either way. We'll have to see how that shakes out. Obviously, I think that the SEC should lose these cases. There is no legal merit for these cases, and the SEC continuing to say things like that there are things such as crypto asset securities, which, just a reminder, do not exist at all. A crypto asset security is not a thing. It is not a law. There is no law that says that that says crypto asset securities are a thing. This is something that the SEC has made up. This is something that Gary Gensler has made up. It is a total bullshit, and I really, really hope the judge sees this. I think they will. I mean, I have a lot of faith in the U.S. Judicial system from the previous cases that have been won in the crypto arena here. I have zero faith in the SEC. SEC. I have zero faith in regulatory bodies generally in the US, and I have even less faith in Congress to do anything about this. So it's really up to the courts here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the judge does on Jan 17th here. But I'll link this thread in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, so just a shout out here, I did mention that the 11th Ethereum Foundation research Reddit AMA was happening. So it did happen last week, I believe. So if you missed that, you can go check out all the questions and answers. I'll link them in the YouTube description below. There were a lot of good questions and answers, guys. Like if you want to know what's happening at the bleeding edge of Ethereum development, and not just Ethereum L1, but L2s as well, definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so there are a couple of all-core devs calls since I've been away. I just wanted to cover this one that Light Clients actually put a tweet thread out about. So he was covering for Tim Biko here, but this was the first all-core devs call of 2024, and they discussed a bunch of things, mainly around Dencun, of course, but also around what the next upgrade for Ethereum will look like. So what comes after Dencun is obviously, I think they're calling it Petra these days. I was calling it Petra, but I think it's called Petra now, or that's at least what the core devs are kind of talking about. But they also, with regards to Dencun, set upgrade schedules for the testnet. So I don't remember if I covered this before I took my break, but essentially, Gurley is going to be happening on 17th of Jan, so that is this week on Wednesday. Sepolia is going to be happening on 30th of Jan, and Holsky on 7th of Feb, all at different times. You can see all of this. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And then, obviously, Mainnet comes after that. Now, I'm sticking to my prediction that if all the testnets go correctly, we're going to see a mainnet launch by mid to late March. I say that because you usually want to give everyone at least a month's notice for them to upgrade their clients, right? For the client teams to get out all of their clients able to upgrade to, so at least a month's notice, and which means that, I mean, 7th of Feb, Holsky testnet launch, then I would probably think that they would wait a week before sending out the official, hey, okay, mainnet launch is going to be on this date, and that would obviously put it at mid to late March there. So that's how I get to mid to late March. I'm pretty confident in that at this point. As I've said before, if the testnets go well, there's really nothing else. There's no more changes to the clients. There's no more changes to the specs like there were that resulted in the delay, or not delay, but that resulted in the timelines changing from, November last year to March this year. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in March. It could push out to early April, but what's a couple of weeks among friends, right? It doesn't really matter. So anyway, that's your schedule on Dencun. But of course, they're moving on from Dencun now over to the Petra upgrade. But they also discussed around priorities. So there is an open discussion now within the core devs on whether to prioritize Verkle trees and statelessness, and how that's going to affect upgrades. And it says here that should it be decided that Verkle is next, you could expect no new execution layer features for at least 12 to 24 months, possibly longer. Now, there was some confusion around this. This does not mean that there would be no hard forks for 12 to 24 months. It would just mean that potentially there would be no execution layer related EIPs as part of those hard forks. So we could still do consensus layer EIPs, such as the max effective balance increase and other related EIPs like that. But if they do choose to prioritize Verkle trees, then we could see maybe execution layer updates coming. No more execution layer updates this year, and they would be pushed into next year's upgrades there. But anyway, you can go read Light Clients' full thread here for context on that. And there was also a tweet here from Alex Stokes, which says that the path is currently clear for core development in 2024 with the Petra hard fork by DevCon, so hopefully by November. With these EIPs here, with parallel work being done on Verkle, PeerDAS, which is data availability sampling, and 7547, which is inclusion lists, teases up to ship blob count increases in early 2025, Verkle mid-2025, and exclusion lists sometimes in 2025. So the 7251, I believe, is the max effective balance increase. So as I said, that should still be slated for inclusion in an upgrade in Petra, or Petra, whatever you want to call it, hopefully by November this year. And I'm really hoping for that because, as I've said before, the max effective balance increase for Ethereum stakers or for Ethereum validators is huge. And it allows us, obviously, to do a bunch of things. One of those is increasing the network load, which means that increasing the blob count and possibly even increasing the gas limit, which I know has been a discussion recently. I don't know if I actually have a tweet to talk about the gas limit right now, but to talk about today. But now that I've mentioned it, I do want to talk about this. So there was a lot of discussion around raising the gas limit over the last week. Now, for those of you who don't know, the gas limit on Ethereum is basically Ethereum's block size. The bigger it is, the more, I guess, like data is added to the chain, or the more kind of the more the chain grows, essentially, the bigger the chain gets. Now, the reason why it's kept so small is because we want to allow people to run full nodes on consumer-grade hardware, right? We don't want them to have like data centers or really high-powered hardware in order to run full nodes on. And it doesn't just increase chain size, it increases sync time, it increases general overhead. It is not something that should be increased willy-nilly. Now, the reason that there's a lot of discussion about it is because I think by increasing it, you do, in theory, lower the fees, lower layer 1 fees in kind of the short term. Because let me give you an example here. If we were to increase or double the gas limit, right now the gas limit is 30 million. It's technically 15 million, but because of EIP 1559, it's 30 million. So let's say we double that to 60 million, just for argument's sake here. That means that you would, in theory, have an instant 2x capacity. So that means that the gas fee should basically cut in half. So instead of it being 20 Gwei as it is right now, it would be 10 Gwei. Now, the reason why I'm not necessarily against a gas limit increase, I didn't mention this in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, but the reason why I don't think it's something that is such a big of a fix that people think it is because there's this concept of induced demand. And I think most people will know what this is, but basically you increase like the available space and it gets filled up. That's the concept of induced demand, because essentially what happens is that let's use a highway as an example here. So let's say you have a 4-lane highway and it's congested all the time. And then you say, okay, well, I'm going to add like 2 more lanes to this highway and then it's going to flow better because now we have 6 lanes. But the problem with that is that everyone that wasn't driving before or taking other roads before because they knew that highway was congested is now going to be like, okay, well, I can go take the highway now because there's 2 extra lanes here and traffic is flowing better. So over the short term, you have a better flowing traffic system, but very quickly that gets filled up again. And then you're back to square one where it's essentially, oh, okay, well, we have a 6-lane highway, but it's congested now. So that's the concept of induced demand. The same thing would happen to L1 Ethereum, where for a short period of time, we would have extra capacity, but then very quickly it will get filled up because that latent demand that is there, that isn't kind of, I guess, like, isn't using the network right now, would come in and use the network because now you've basically halved the gas fees and everyone's like, oh, the gas fees are halved, I can go use it. Well, there's that kind of saying of you are traffic. Well, you are now filling up the block with transactions and you are now getting us back to exactly where we were. And of course, the people who are willing to pay the higher fees are the MEV bots. So we're basically back to square one. So I'm not necessarily against raising the gas limit when it is safe to do so, but it's all about the trade-offs here. Like, what's the trade-off here? Do we double the gas size? We double the gas limit. That basically means we double the chain size. We make it harder to sync. We kick off lower powered devices on the network potentially. We force a lot of people to upgrade their SSDs. If they're on 2 terabytes right now, they would have to go to 4 terabytes, for example, even more than that. Now, it's not expensive to do that, but it's a hassle for people. And for what? For a bit of short-term, I guess, like relief for L1 when we have a roll-up centric roadmap anyway. I just don't think that it is something that necessarily should be relied upon for L1 scaling. I mean, sure, we could increase it a little bit because we haven't increased it for a while and hardware has gotten better and cheaper and it would make sense just to increase it to match that. But relying on it for scalability, no, not at all. And on top of all of that, once we ship Verkle trees and we ship kind of things like state expiry and stuff like that, we have the potential to be able to increase the gas limit much more than by 2x. We could increase it like 10 to 100x, some of the estimates that I've seen, without negatively impacting the network, without increasing the chain size, without making it harder to sync the network, right? And then one last thing I'll say about the gas limit increase, or gas limits in general, we are technically increasing the gas limit by introducing EIP 4844. Yes, it is something that is distinctly different than the existing L1 gas market that we have today, but we are adding extra capacity for L2s, right? And the reason why we've done this is because obviously we want to give these L2s some scalability gains while we're working on full dank sharding. And we want to make it cheaper for people to use these because we're pushing them to L2s because obviously L1 is very expensive. But the other side of it is that we have expiry on those things. So the chain size only gets bigger for the period of time that they have to store the blobs. The blobs expire after a period of time. I mean, I can't remember the exact days. I always get this mixed up. I think it's 18 days. It might be longer. But after that period of time, you as a full node, you can prune that and that's fine. The network will let you do that. So essentially, you only have to keep it for 18 days. Whereas by increasing the gas limit, you have to keep it without state expiry being implemented, which is a roadmap item, but it's probably not going to be implemented until sometime next year, if that, right? When you think about it as a gas limit increase, that is not something that you can prune, not something that you can change. That is a permanent increase to the chain size. So there are always trade-offs, guys. And that's why I think that increasing the gas limit, maybe to match the advances in hardware, is okay, but we shouldn't rely on it for L1 scalability improvements. And that's my general view on the gas limit increase there. But anyway, I'm going to leave that one at that. You can go check out all those tweets I talked about. I'll link them in the YouTube description below. I just realized I'm already at 30 minutes. I wanted to keep this episode to an hour, but there's so much stuff to get through. So I'm just going to go through all of it and see where I land here. So next up, we have, I saw this tweet, and probably everyone already knows this by now. This happened a little while ago on Jan 5th here, but the Ethereum validator exit queue spiked up a lot. I think it went to like 18,000 validators that wanted to exit. And everyone was like, why are so many validators exiting all of a sudden? Well, it turns out that Celsius, the defunct Celsius, the bankrupt Celsius, tweeted out saying that they were going to unstake a lot of their validators, which I think totaled about 200,000 ETH, and distribute that back to their creditors. So even though a lot of ETH was being unstaked and a lot of validators were being unstaked, it was a reason that we could point to, basically. It was because Celsius needs to pay back their customers, needs to pay back their creditors, so that's why that happened there. And I'm sure you all saw that by now, but just in case you didn't, I figured that was worth highlighting there. All right, so I just wanted to highlight this, and I think this has already happened, but there was a talk being given here. You can see Casper tweeted out saying, our space certainly needs more economists thinking about the kind of problems we faced. So I'm very excited for there to be a session on the economics of Ethereum and one of the most influential economics conferences, the ASSA. I'll also be presenting our work on timing games at the conference. So this conference happened, as I said, Jan 5th. You know, I've got a bunch of tabs here because I obviously went back and saw everything that I missed, but I don't know if there was a recording for this or not, but this talk was given at the Association of Financial Economists, which is pretty cool that crypto, specifically Ethereum, is being kind of welcomed into that world, because obviously crypto and Ethereum and crypto economics is a thing. It's a big thing, and economics powers this whole, I guess, like this whole ecosystem. And I mentioned this on the Bankless rollup. So I actually ended up doing a Bankless rollup to fill in for David last week. I'm sure a lot of you saw that. I did it with Ryan. But I mentioned on there that once you have the money in crypto, you have everything. And that's why Ethereum has been so successful, because ETH is money, right? ETH is a store of value. ETH is worth $300 billion. So once you have the money, once you have a really strong economic unit that powers your network in crypto, you can have anything you want, especially once it's programmable money. Whereas BTC is money. BTC is a store of value, but it is not programmable, right? That's what Bitcoin misses, is that it doesn't give programmability to its native asset. Whereas with Ethereum, with ETH is a programmable money. And once you have that, you can have anything you want. And once you have that, there are so many implications around that. There are so many different ways to design that. Ethereum's monetary policy has been tweaked for over many years, right? Not just EIP 1559, but all the block reward reductions under proof of work. And then with the merge, we obviously had a new issuance curve be implemented as part of proof of stake, and there's already a lot of more research on this around tinkering with it in order to make it the best possible monetary policy for the network and the best possible money that ETH can become. Because as I said, once you have the money, once you have the programmable money, you can have anything in crypto. So it's really great to see that Ethereum is being invited to these conferences and is able to present there, because there is a lot of really cool financial engineering or economic engineering being done within the crypto and Ethereum ecosystems. All right, so there was an issue with Besu, I believe, last week? Yeah, Jan 11th here. I think before Jan 11th, but this is the post-mortem. So it happened on Jan 6th. So Besu put out this tweet that said, on Jan 6th, many Besu Mainnet nodes experienced a halt. This was triggered by an edge case in Bonsai and was rectified in 12 hours by our team with huge support from the community and node operators. And you can read the full post-mortem breakdown. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But Besu is still the minority of the network right now. I don't know what the percentage is for Besu, but it's definitely not that high. I think it's maybe 5 to 10% or something like that. I know some of you in the Daily Gwei Discord community, you run Besu and you had issues there. The reason I bring this up is not because I want to talk necessarily about Besu, but I want to talk about the fact that if this happens for Geth, guys, the whole network goes down. Like that's kind of what we're facing here. Because Geth is still the supermajority execution layer client. If this was to happen on Geth, the entire network goes down. And people were making fun of Besu, or saying that this is why I use Geth, because it's more reliable than these other clients. But the problem with that is that even though the Geth is more reliable, it's been around for longer, it's probably more secure, right? The issue with that is that if everyone's running Geth, it de facto makes it not secure anymore. Because as I said, if you're a supermajority execution layer client and you have a bug and you have something that goes wrong, the network goes offline, guys. Like, it literally goes offline. There's no slowing of blocks. There's no delayed inclusion. It goes offline. You cannot use the network anymore. And if Ethereum L1 goes offline, that is one of the catastrophic outcomes, in my opinion. That is one of the most catastrophic outcomes for Ethereum, because that eats away at Ethereum's reliability as a global settlement layer, right? And that's what Ethereum is being built for, to be that global settlement layer. So even though Besu had an issue here, be glad that it wasn't Geth. Because if it was Geth, we'd be in a lot more pain than we... I don't even think there was much pain from this. There was some people that went offline. They just obviously restarted or updated their clients and they were back online not even a day later. But this is another call to... Basically, if you're on Geth, I understand why you're on Geth. But think about this. Is it worse for you to be on Besu or Nethermind or any other client that goes down for a day, right? But the network still runs? Or is it worse if you're on Geth and then you're contributing to the fact that Geth is a supermajority and then for the entire network to go offline? I think the latter is worse. That's my opinion, of course. Now, obviously, as individuals, we don't have an impact in the terms of what we run, as big of an impact in terms of what we run as the staking providers do. But as individuals, we have an impact at the social layer. So we can pressure these other staking providers or these staking providers such as Coinbase, right? Such as Lido, such as... Binance and Kraken and all them to get off Geth, especially Coinbase. I think Coinbase mentioned recently that they're going to be looking into getting off Geth, or at least kind of phasing out Geth as being the majority of what they run. I think they only run Geth right now. So that would be a huge deal if they did that, because immediately you would see a pretty big change in the makeup of the execution layer client diversity. But as an individual, as I said, like, yes, running your own thing isn't going to have as big of an impact, but it's still better. It's still good for the health of the network, and it's still kind of like practicing what you preach too. And I understand that if you don't want to be offline for a day, especially if you've got a lot of validators, you could miss a block proposal. I get that. In that respect, if you have a lot of validators and you're scared of missing a block proposal, just have a backup node. You can still run Geth, right? This is the thing. There's a difference between running a full node that connected to validators and running ones that aren't connected to validators. I run my Geth archive node and there's no validators connected to that. So I run my Geth archive node because of the ODAO duties that I have in Rocket Pool, but I connect my my validators to Nethermind, right? So that full node that I'm running, the Geth archive node, is not connected to validators, which means it's not participating in consensus, which means that it's not contributing to the fact that if Geth had a bug, it would take the network down, because there's no consensus happening on that. You know, there's no validators connected to that. So you can still have a backup Geth node that your validators can automatically switch over to, and you can do this natively, by the way, with Rocket Pool, or you can use the rescue node effort that the Rocket Pool community has come up with. Has been around for a little while, while still using Nethermind or Besu or another minority client. So if you are concerned about that, and honestly, you should only really be concerned about that if you are running a lot of validators, because the chances of you, if you're running one validator, and the chances of you missing a block proposal on a random day where one of these nodes goes, has a bug in it, is very, very small. But if you're running like tens, potentially hundreds of validators, then sure. But in that respect, you should be running backups anyway. I mean, I'm running backups for my validators, of course, because I don't want them going offline. I don't want to miss block proposals. But if you are at the industrial size of hundreds of validators, you should definitely be running backups for everything. You should be running, uninterruptible power supplies. You should be running backup internet if you're really concerned about it. Like if you're concerned about missing block proposals, because if you're running hundreds of validators, there's a good chance that you're getting one or more block proposals per day, and you will miss those if something was to happen. It was highly likely you would. So of course you'd be running backups anyway. But anyway, you can go read the full postmortem of what happened with Besu. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so EigenLayer has announced a bunch of new LSTs coming to the platform, as well as an unpause of the restaking caps. So their restaking starts again on Jan 29th at 12 p.m. Pacific time here, and will go until Feb 2nd at 12 p.m. Pacific time. So you've only got like a 3-day window here or 4-day window here. And they're also going to be adding Frax finances, mantles, and liquid collectives staked ETH derivatives. So this is S Frax ETH, M ETH or Meth, and LS ETH are going to be added here. But yeah, as I said, the unstaking cap, the restaking caps are going to be unpaused on these dates as well. I find this funny because the caps didn't get filled up straight away last time, but they still got filled up. And the higher the price of ETH goes, the more TVL EigenLayer has in dollar terms. And I think that there is still a pretty big I guess, hunger for restaking, but we're kind of getting to the point now where we're basically tapping into how much ETH is wanting to restake, at least right now. Because of the fact that EigenLayer isn't live yet, obviously, it's still relatively risky because it's new, right? And by doing this, you're locking up your ETH. You can't withdraw. And obviously, locking up your ETH can have dire consequences. Like, I'm sure people who locked up their ETH in Blast that are waiting for that airdrop probably are regretting it because they missed out on using that ETH for other things, right? So there is a opportunity cost here. There's a time cost here, and you have to basically weigh that up. And I think that the fact that the restaking caps aren't getting filled as quickly means that we've basically tapped out the vast majority of people that were going to restake before anything was live. Now, of course, when things go live and you can withdraw at will, it's a completely different story. But until that happens, yeah, it's going to be like this. But anyway, as I said, the restaking caps get lifted on Jan 29th, still a couple of weeks from now, but you'll be able to restake with these new 3 LSTs along with all the other ones that are currently live on the platform. All right, speaking of EigenLayer, Sriram put out a great tweet thread where he said, EigenLayer's shared security, the 4 superpowers. Since EigenLayer is the first universal validation platform with shared crypto economic security, there is a lot of new ground to cover here. And he has an image here, as well as a short explanation in the thread, as well as a YouTube video. So I'm not going to read all this out. You can go check this out for yourself. But the 4 superpowers that shared security give you is shared security is strictly better than the existing security services. So the example here is that $1 billion restaked to 1,000 services is better than 1 million staked to each service. Insurance for attributable security. So each service can buy insurance for a subset of stake. Economic of scale in insurance. If an app uses 5 services, all of which are fully restaked on EigenLayer, the app only needs to buy $1 of insurance in total rather than $1 of insurance on each. And elastic scaling of security. If there are many apps with independently varying amounts of security, demand over time, it is better to borrow the required amount from a common pool rather than to have dedicated pool security. I really like this framing and really like these superpowers because this is exactly how I think about it. I think about EigenLayer as scaled shared security, basically. And I couldn't think of anything better than tapping into the existing economic security of ETH as an asset and also the existing node operator set of the Ethereum ecosystem. But also, this introduces more risk. There's always more risk here, guys. And I think this is something that maybe I haven't talked about enough on the refuel because, as you guys know, I'm really, really bullish on EigenLayer. Have been for ages. I'm an investor in EigenLayer. I try to be as unbiased as possible here, but I really do view restaking as a new primitive that hasn't been done before, and it's such a explosively bullish primitive that when I think about it enough, it gives me goosebumps. I'm not even kidding. Like, that's how bullish I am on restaking as a primitive. But at the same time, I think about a lot of the risks involved with it and think about the things that could go wrong, and I kind of think, okay, well, in the worst case scenario, in the worst case scenario, I don't think it would cause long-term damage to Ethereum or anything like that. But in the worst case scenario, you could see a blow up on the level of Terra. In the worst case scenario, because these things are permissionless, because someone could build an EigenLayer service that looks like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't look like Terra, but acts like something that is a Ponzi or acts like something that could death spiral, right? And then a lot of people would go into that, especially during a bull market. A lot of people would put their restaked ETH into that. And then if it blows up, that would harm all of those people. As I said, Ethereum as a network would be fine. I do believe that. But it would harm it on the social layer, of course. It would harm a lot of users, which means that there would be probably a pretty stark crash in the price of ETH because there would be a loss of confidence there. It would be a narrative for people to trade, all that stuff there. So I do see the risks. I do understand the risks, and I do think that they're worth talking about and they're worth highlighting. But at the same time, this was always going to happen, restaking. This is a primitive that was always going to happen given the way that LSTs work, given the way that proof of stake works. And if Ethereum as a network can't deal with that, and if we can't build a secure restaking ecosystem, then we don't deserve to have any of this. So I think that it doesn't matter if I'm bullish or not on it. I think what matters is that it was going to happen anyway, and I'm glad that it's happening. It's happening via something like EigenLayer, where I think Sriram is a really, really good guy. He's really, really smart. He's really open to criticism, which I always think is a great character trait for someone. If they're really open to criticism and they're open to kind of explaining themselves in detail and they're open to explaining themselves technically as well. So I think Sriram is is really great as one of the founders of EigenLayer here. But on top of that, I think that just the way that they've gone about things and the way that they're doing things, like getting in the ETH stake first, doing TVL caps in order to bootstrap that initial security. I know there are people that say that that's risky, but I mean, everything's risky. Like, saying something's risky is not enough. You need to go off, right? You have to basically detail what the risks are here. But I think it's just a really great way of going about things. And they know that a lot of people want to restake, and they know that a lot of degens in the crypto ecosystem, and they're trying to do it as, at least I believe that they're trying to do it as non-degen-y as possible. But anyway, you can go give Shriram's tweet that a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so EtherFi has put out their 2024 roadmap, or the first half of 2024 roadmap, and it looks very similar to Vitalik's Ethereum roadmap, so they've taken inspiration from it. But essentially, they have 4 key things that on their roadmap. They have decentralization and governance, product, DeFi integrations, and community. And each of these things have a bunch of other things within them that you can check out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I think what you guys are probably most interested in is when the token is going to go live. I know a lot of you guys are farming it right now. So they said here, we have set the token generation event for April. So yeah, the TGE is happening in April here. And in terms of going... in terms of the other updates that come before that, there is a DAO framework being published in February and a tokenomics documents release in March leading into the token generation event. And obviously ETH, the LST, is part of EtherFi, is already live. It went live in November. They've had a lot of great inflows from that. They're doing a bunch of L2 strategies as well, starting with Polygon, and a bunch of things around community and partnership. So you can go check out this thread for yourself to see everything that's happening there. And I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so Obol announced that the first ever restaked Obol distributed validator clusters on the Ethereum mainnet are live now. So this was part of Operation Solo Staker from EtherFi. The 2 clusters are integrated with native restaking on EigenLayer. So the DV clusters are located in Australia. Well, they're located in a lot of places here. You can see here Australia, Kenya, Thailand, England, and so on and so forth. You can read all the countries. I'll link that in the YouTube description below, but great to see that this is live here because, as I've said before, guys, distributed validator technology is the future of this ecosystem, is the future of the staking ecosystem, and obviously restaking is also the future of the staking ecosystem, so marrying these things, 2 things together is a no-brainer and something that I'm glad to see has been done sooner rather than later. But yeah, just congrats to Obol and EtherFi for doing this. This is really, really great to see. All right, so on to some L2 news. So Stephen Goldfeder, one of the co-founders of Offchain Labs who developed the Arbitrum One or Arbitrum ecosystem, put out a tweet saying, a very big day for Arbitrum One. So this happened on Jan 5th. So the reason why he's saying this is because Arbitrum One did more trading volume than Ethereum Mainnet for, I believe, the first time ever. And as you can see here, this is a screenshot from DeFi Llama, I believe. So Arbitrum did a 24-hour volume of $1.8 billion, whereas Ethereum Mainnet did $1.4 billion. And then Steven says, is Ethereum second place now? No, this is literally how Ethereum remains number 1. And it is, right? When you're talking about Ethereum, you have to talk about Ethereum Mainnet plus the L2s in terms of any metrics you look at, because Ethereum L2s are Ethereum, of course, here. And I think Arbitrum has actually maintained a lot of this volume, to be honest. It's not just a flash in the pan like some other networks out there. It's really great to see that they've maintained this, and it's really great to see it continue to grow. I mean, there's another related tweet to this from Uniswap, tweeting out that L2 volume on Uniswap is heating up. The Uniswap 30-day volume on Jan 9th, you can see here Arbitrum in a strong lead with $12 billion, Polygon at $3.1 billion. I think Polygon here is the Polygon POS chain, which technically is not an L2, but it's going to be an L2 in the future. I don't know if you're going to count that or not, but still, I'll just leave that at that. I'm not going to start a holy war. Optimism at 2.2 billion and base at 0.3 billion here. But generally, the volumes on L2s just continue to grow. And that's exactly what we want to be seeing, right? We want to be seeing the L2s continue to grow their volumes and liquidity network effect, because that's what's going to bring in new users. That's what's going to solve, or at least help a lot with the liquidity fragmentation that people go on about, which I think is a overplayed narrative, to be honest. I mean, the vast majority of people can just go onto Arbitrum One right now and be fine. You could literally live on Arbitrum One and be fine with most things. And if you need to go to other networks, that's fine as well. You can bridge to them. Like, I really think this liquidity fragmentation thing is vastly overblown, and it's going to get solved, guys. Like I've mentioned this before, it's going to get solved, but I think it's something that definitely people talk about too much as being like a major issue and like a death knell for Ethereum's roll-up centric roadmap, when in reality, it's not at all. But anyway, good to see these volumes picking up here on the L2s. Moving on, so Offchain Labs Twitter account tweeted out a thread here saying upgrades made to the Arbitrum tech stack on Arbitrum One and Nova require approval from the Arbitrum DAO. However, Arbitrum Orbit chains can permissionlessly adopt new upgrades prior to the DAO voting if they wish. So the new upgrades that are in development right now are Bold, Stylus, and Timeboost. You guys know that Bold is the next generation fraud proofs for Arbitrum. Stylus is the ability to build smart contracts in languages other than Solidity, such as Rust, C, and C++. And Timeboost is a modified transaction ordering policy for chains based on the Arbitrum stack, and for those who utilize Espresso's shared sequencing protocol. So more stuff around MEV there. And there's blog posts linked in the thread here for, I guess, descriptions on what each of these things are. You can go check that out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. I know I'm running through these things a little bit fast here, guys, but I really wanted to keep this episode to an hour or less, because I didn't want to keep going on for keep boring you guys, but there obviously has been a lot of news to cover, and there's going to be a lot more news to cover during the week anyway. But yeah, moving on from that. So yeah, I mean, this is something that I actually wanted to spend a few minutes discussing because there was drama about this, of course. So the retroactive public goods funding round 3 finished, and the results were published. So 30 million OP was granted to contributors building the public goods that power the Optimism Collective. So 501 total recipients got a share of 30 million OP. I personally got a pretty substantial sum. I got 76,000 OP tokens, which is huge. I mean, the current price of OP is what? I think it's like $3.50 or something, or $4. I haven't actually checked it lately, but if I actually check the price of OP, I'll be able to know. So 358 times 76,000 OP, that is $272,000, right? That is a very huge chunk of change, guys. Like, that is not something to scoff at. Now, of course, a bunch of that is going to go to taxes, unfortunately. I think at least half of that will go to taxes, but I am planning to offset that because I'd rather not pay more taxes than I've already paid. So what I'm going to do is I think that I'll be able to donate to the Protocol Guild soon with that OP while being able to write that off tax-wise. So if I'm able to do that, that means I'm able to lower my tax bill, or essentially not pay tax on that OP, or at least on a portion of it, and essentially redirect that money towards Protocol Guild, because I'd much rather give the money to the Protocol Guild than to the Australian government, because I've paid enough tax at this point, and I've paid all my taxes that I owe. I'm not trying to dodge tax or anything like that, but I'd rather be able to pay this OP to the Protocol Guild, or donate to the Protocol Guild, rather than it just me needing to cash it out and then give the Australian dollars to the tax office again. So I'm going to look for obviously a legal way to do that. I'm not going to do that if I can't legally do it, but that's the plan right now. But I just wanted to say huge thanks to everyone who supports the Daily Gwei. Obviously, I got the grant for the Daily Gwei and for all of the work that I do around it. But yeah, that's huge, honestly, guys. Like, it's a large sum of money. It's kind of funny because it makes up for the fact that I lost that 50,000 OP to that phishing that phishing scam that I fell for. I think it's a few months ago now. So it makes up for that and more. But yeah, I'm just very, very humbled to get that OP there. But of course, I wasn't the only one who received OP. There were a lot of projects. As I said, 501 total recipients that received a lot. It was great to see that the top 10 recipients were all core Ethereum kind of teams, like Protocol Guild and core developer teams. I think the Protocol Guild ended up getting like, how much did they get? Like 600,000 OP or something crazy, right? Which is great because there's over 100 people that are going to be getting a share of that, and that is a lot of money. It's millions of dollars there, so I'm very happy to see that. But of course, whenever money is given out as part of these things, there is a lot of drama around it. Now, there was a lot of people bringing up tweet threads of project that they highlighted saying that, this project doesn't deserve this because they took VC money, or then, they're a dodgy project, or they got too much money for what they are. Look, guys, at the end of the day, retroactive public goods funding from Optimism is an experiment. It is not something that is an exact science. It is not something that is perfect. There is a lot of issues with it. I've discussed these issues before. I think I discussed it a couple months ago around the whole VC thing, like if you're VC funded or not. But at the end of the day, the experiment is playing out. The money that's being paid out is coming from the OP tokens, and the only reason why the OP token has any value is because people are buying it on the open market. So no one's really being forced into this. No one's being forced to buy the OP token. So I don't really think it's an egregious thing at all. And also at the same time, I kind of got a little bit annoyed with people calling out these projects, because if you think about it, you can think about this like an airdrop. How many people call out others for getting airdrops? Like, do you ever see, I mean, sometimes it happens, but like for the majority of the airdrops that happen, there are people that get massive airdrops and no one calls them out for not deserving it. When in reality, a lot of the airdrops that people get, deserve is a subjective thing, but really, what are you getting an airdrop for, right? You're getting an airdrop because you use the protocol once, or you are actually farming it, right? You're actually just trying to game it and try to game the system. So like, I feel like that should be called out more than people actually having to submit an application, having to go through a review process with badge holders, having to actually do the work, in order to get these grants. And at the end of the day, like, some of the projects that people called out weren't actually getting that much money in the grand scheme of things. Like, I saw people getting called out for getting like 5,000 OP. Which, okay, I'm not going to say that $20,000, almost $20,000 isn't a lot of money, but they're acting like these people are getting like millions of dollars or something like that, right? The way they were calling them out. So I just thought that was a bit crazy. And that's, as I said, why I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about this. But as I said, it's an experiment. It's playing out. I'm very humbled to get the grant that I did. Obviously, I'm very, very thankful for it. Whether I deserve it or not, I think that's just a very subjective thing. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what matters is how it actually plays out. And if you want to have your voice heard, you need to go into the Optimism governance forums and community and have your voice heard there. You can't do it on Twitter. You have to actually engage where the Optimism community is, because this is an Optimism run thing. This is not something that's going to be dealt with on crypto Twitter. And crypto Twitter is a horrible place to deal with these things anyway. So if you do have opinions on this and you do want to give feedback to the Optimism Collective, go to the governance forums and do it. Don't do it on Twitter, or at least if you're going to do it on Twitter, write it on Twitter and then go to the forums and post it there so that people can actually see it and discuss it with you. Because a lot of people don't want to sit on Twitter and discuss these things because Twitter is not a great platform for that. But anyway, moving on from that to the next update here. So Eclipse, you guys know this is the SVM L2 or Solana Virtual Machine L2 that's coming to Ethereum soon. So they've put out a deep dive that outlines the technical details of the Eclipse bridge, how blocks are posted to Celestia, which is their data availability layer that they're using, and how Eclipse's fraud-proof design, and how it's distinct from implementations common across EVM-based L2. So if you're interested in learning more about Eclipse's design, you can go check out this pretty lengthy blog post, pretty detailed blog post as well. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, last couple of things here. So Coinbase put out their roadmap for their base network for 2024, and you can see here Jesse Pollack just summarized this in a quote tweet saying, "Just shared Base's 2024 mission. The top priorities: accelerating decentralization, driving down fees across the board, making smart wallets the default, making it dead simple to on and off ramp, bringing Coinbase and others on chain, and making the super chain seamless." So they really are all in on this thing, guys. Like, Coinbase is super all in on Base. They're super all in on L2s, on the OP stack, on the super chain, and they're going to do everything in their power to make Base the best experience possible for people. Now, I know, of course, Base may have not been growing as fast as some people expected it to, but Coinbase has always been a company that plays the long game. They play the marathon. They've been around since, 2012? It's been like 12 years almost since Coinbase has been around. And as I mentioned a few months ago, or I guess like a few weeks ago, when Binance got hit by the Department of Justice, I believe, or the Treasury Department or something like that, because they played hard and fast, and obviously FTX played hard and fast, and a lot of these other exchanges always played hard and fast. Coinbase was always the marathon runner. They played it slow, they played it by the rules, by the book, and in the end, they won. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of the rules are good, like a lot of the rules are not good, but Coinbase didn't play cowboy, and that's always been why they've been so successful in my mind. And I think they're doing the same playbook for Base. I think Base is going to have slow and steady growth. It's not going to be degen growth. It's not going to be people going in there and aping billions of dollars to farm some token. They've already said multiple times that Base isn't going to have a token, and even if it does sometime soon, even if it does, it won't be anytime soon, right? But yeah, it's just great to see them doubling down on this, and especially having the number one point here be accelerating decentralization, because one of the main knocks that people have against Base is that it's centralized around Coinbase and that they won't decentralize it. I am very, very confident that they will decentralize it, and it's in their best, it's in their best interest to decentralize it as well. So you're going to see that happen throughout this year and even into next year there. But you can go read the full 2024 roadmap for Base. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. And last up here, there was another tweet from Jesse Pollack where he said, inspired by Dan, Romero, and the Base team, they now focus on two metrics for how they grow. And this is related to what I was just saying about Coinbase focusing on the slow and steady growth of Base instead of the fast and loose growth. So the two metrics are quality monthly transacting addresses, or QMTA, and quality monthly transacting builders, or QMTB. There's so much noise and misdirection in on-chain metrics, and it's been helpful to focus on the signal. I mean, preach, Jesse. Seriously, preach. You can go back years on the Refuel and find me talking about this and about how so many of the on-chain metrics are crap in crypto, and so many can be gamed, so much is noise, so much is just used to pump narratives up. And I'm so happy that the Base team is going to be focusing on these quality kind of monthly transacting addresses and monthly transacting builders. Now, how they actually define these things for both of these, you have to base it on a bunch of different heuristics, and I'm sure they'll publish something about this in the future. But I'm glad that they're putting this out there publicly, because I believe that as an industry, we need to be more, I guess, like on top of these metrics. We need to be qualifying these metrics, and we need to be basically weeding out the noise, because if we don't, we're basically just left with really shitty metrics that perpetuate shitty narratives, that perpetuate shitty ecosystems, that just make people, they just harm people in the end. Because there's a lot of people who buy into this stuff just based on the metrics, thinking that they're buying into a big winner and then getting wrecked. And we see this play out all time and time again with everything. So I really hope that as an industry, we can continue to move forward with highlighting better metrics across the board and highlighting better ways of measuring on-chain usage, especially on-chain usage across longer time periods as well, which is something that I've been preaching about for years there. But I think on that note, guys, that's going to be it for today. So again, apologies for missing this week, but hopefully I've made up for it with this hour-long episode. I should be good for the rest of the week, but there may be a rug at any moment. As I said, it just depends on how I'm feeling. I was feeling good today, so I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I almost, actually at the beginning of the day, I was almost like, should I rug the refuel today? Because I'm not feeling too great, because I woke up and I was just not feeling great. But then as the day progressed, I got some sun, got outside a bit, started feeling better. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And, it's 10:30 p.m. my time right now. So I'm basically recording this at the time I usually do. But yeah, I'm glad I did it, because I covered a lot of ground here. Hopefully you guys learned something, as, my goal of every refuel is to be able to teach you guys at least one thing that you didn't know before. So yeah, but anyway, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.